I will call all the speakers that kindly were available to animate this discussion with Robin. And the first roundtable, as I told you, is focusing on innovative solution for SMEs in order to, of course, having a climate neutral innovation in the Alpine area. And I would like to call on the stage Mr. Jawad Reddani from Prometerre. Prometerre is a Swiss association in the Canton Vaud in Switzerland that is focusing on promotion of agricultural activities. The second speaker is Enrico Sironi. Actually, Clemente Sironi, sorry. Tessitura Enrico Sironi is the company that is running, and is an Italian textile. Is an excellent of a manufacturer that has been crafting high quality fabric since 1892, and is based in Gallarate and is specialized in natural fibers and specifically on linen. Linen is one of the two Alpine textile we are taking care of inside of the project. And this company is producing quality linen fabrics, and he will talk about these activities in an environmental perspective. The third speaker I want to call is Victoire Satto, founder of the Good Goods Media. Actually, he started this activity as is connected online or is present? I guess it's connected because unfortunately she could not be here in presence. She's actually a medical doctor, but then she decided to invest her expertise in media as an expert in corporate social responsibility and related obviously on textile, fashion, and luxury sector. She's trying to shed the light on the industry's excesses, and she created this media platform redefining perspective on impact and also on contemporaries. We have other two speakers that are Alix Arto, multidisciplinary designer, and Emma Casella, that is an industrial designer in Fibershed. FibershedDACH is an organization with a vision to create a flourishing ecosystem with regional material and a platform that connects farmers, producer, mills, artisan, designer, brands, and the public. And I want to enable the creation of products that are circular and build soil health, raise awareness through workshops and the different products, and bring back local production and craftsmanship. And the last speaker that unfortunately cannot be here, she's connected, I guess, is Caroline Schelke, is a designer. Oh, no, she's here. Sorry. I got confused. Okay, she's here. As I said, is a designer, is a researcher based in Germany, specialized in industrial design and material research. And she focuses on exploring the life cycle of products and raw material, often through cross-disciplinary research and experimentation, investigating material, processes, products, and spaces with a strong emphasis on sustainability and understanding the connection in between the material and your environment. So I give the floor to Robin that will start the animation of this discussion. Thank you.
Maybe I'll start here. So thank you very much to all of the speakers to have accepted to join us and to react today. The first topic I would like to start with is we mentioned over the past couple of minutes that AlpTextyles has been working on heritage, on natural resources, and on textiles. And we have someone in the among the speakers that fits quite well in this aspect. So I would like to ask Clemente if you could take us back a couple of centuries ago and tell us a bit about the creation of your company and how your work as a company using natural materials in the Alps has evolved over the course of the years.
Buongiorno. Buongiorno. raccontare un attimo in poche parole quello che può essere stata la storia della mia famiglia, della mia azienda, perché alla fine io oggi sto gestendo questa attività che lavora a Lino dai primi dell'800. La cosa è nata da un contatto di un mio trisavolo con un gruppo di contadini francesi durante una delle sue avventure, delle sue prime attività, che si è ritrovato a essere con Napoleone uno dei mercenari, soldati che lavoravano per Napoleone, è entrato in contatto con i francesi e al termine di questo periodo, di questa sua avventura, i francesi, salutandolo, gli hanno detto: noi abbiamo visto, ci hai raccontato un po' di quello che è la vita della tua famiglia, considerando che si occupano di produzione di tessuti di sete e cose di questo tipo, potremmo mantenere i rapporti tra di noi nel mandarti delle fibre di lino, delle materie prime di lino agricole che produciamo nei campi delle nostre famiglie, e da lì potresti iniziare a lavorare il lino come se fosse la seta, e siamo sicuri che questa cosa la puoi fare, e creare un nuovo mercato, un nuovo sistema di prodotto che potrà servire alla tua famiglia per crescere e svilupparsi. E devo dire che a distanza di 200 anni la mia famiglia vive ancora e lavora su questa avventura del mondo del vino. Tra le altre cose non vi nascondo che rappresento gli imprenditori italiani all'interno della Confederazione Europea del Vino e della Canapa, che oggi si chiama Alias, che raduna gli operatori di quello che è la filiera del lino, quindi partendo dall'agricoltore, arrivando a chi trasforma la fibra, quindi filatori piuttosto che commerce, stigliatori, che è il primo passaggio dalla parte agricola, al mondo che poi trasforma il lino o in prodotto tessile o in prodotto per un utilizzo tecnologico. E questo penso che possa anche essere collegato sul fatto che parliamo di Alp, visto che il progetto riguarda la parte alpina. Se mettiamo le Alpi all'interno di quello che è il contesto europeo, troviamo che sono al centro di tutti i principali territori dove oggi si lavora lino. Abbiamo la parte francese agricola, che comunque riceve l'acqua, che è lo strumento principale da tutti i vari canali, i vari fiumi che trasferiscono le riserve che le nevi danno alle Alpi nel corso del periodo invernale, e lo ridistribuiscono per arrivare nei territori dove viene coltivato principalmente il lino in grossa quantità, perché parliamo anche di lino cinese, cose di questo genere, ma la vera produzione di fibra di lino dobbiamo ricordarci che è comunque sempre nella zona verso la Manica, dove il lino nasce, cresce nel migliore dei modi, dando le qualità migliori. Da lì viene poi trasformato con filature che oggi ormai sono distribuite in più posizioni dell'Europa. Le troviamo in Polonia, le troviamo in Lituania, le troviamo in Francia, le abbiamo in Italia. L'Inificio Nazionale è ancora una delle filature di lino più importanti che ci sono nel mondo. Ha magari delocalizzato qualche cosa in Tunisia per avere dei costi di produzione più bassi in termini proprio, se così si può dire, di costi, visto che la trasformazione del lino è comunque abbastanza, richiede parecchi anni d'opera, per cui l'Italia, che è all'interno delle Alpi, nella Bergamasca, piuttosto che anche per posti più vicini, ha comunque un ruolo molto importante ed è ancora oggi forse il più grosso operatore nell'ambito dei prodotti di moda o dei prodotti tessili tecnici per usi. Quindi il lino ha comunque un'importanza, un ruolo importante, è vista magari dalla maggioranza dei consumatori come un prodotto estivo, ma non lo è solo un prodotto estivo d'abbigliamento. Non dobbiamo dimenticare che i capi d'abbigliamento dei contadini austriaci, quindi territori dove abbiamo anche un clima non sempre favorevole, le classiche giacche del contadino austriaco sono comunque fatte di lino pesante con caratteristiche magari diverse, e dato la sua caratteristica principale, che il lino permette la traspirazione ma isola, per cui è come se l'effetto che ha un capo di lino nel momento in cui uno l'ha addosso lo isola e quindi mantiene la temperatura del corpo corretta, togliendo l'eccesso di freddo o l'eccesso di caldo, quindi il cambio di temperatura che c'è all'esterno. Da lì viene poi usato il lino nell'ambito di quello che può essere la biancheria per la casa, l'arredamento, ma non dobbiamo neanche dimenticare che tutto quello che è il mondo del tessile tecnico nasce originariamente, quindi in passato, nel dover risolvere un problema. Quindi quando una persona si trova a dover avere bisogno di una membrana piuttosto che di un supporto, piuttosto di qualche cosa che aiuti a tenere altri materiali, parte nell'andare sul mercato, un negozio piuttosto che un rivenditore di prodotti simili o che possano corrispondere all'esigenza da risolvere. Cioè, consideriamo una garza medica. Che cosa fa? Una garza medica è un cotone. Spesso e volentieri capita che il cotone non abbia delle resistenze valide per il tipo di utilizzo che deve dare, perché magari è più delicato, non ha resistenza o cose del genere, si va a cercare un prodotto che sia e che abbia determinate caratteristiche ma delle resistenze maggiori. Spesso e volentieri ci si ritrova nel lino.
Thank you, Mr. Sironi. Thank you so much. We will go through this argument later on. Now we go on with. We want to create a debate, a discussion. So we give back the floor to Robin to introduce the other speaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. You mentioned the technical capacities of natural fibers, and I would maybe like to give the floor to either Caroline or Jawad about this, about the topic of what is the potential, let's say, for innovative, in your mind, for innovative uses of materials such as linen or such as wool in the experience that you've had in designing products for you, Caroline, or in the valorization of products from agrosystems, but to try to transform the best possible in sustainable agrosystems for you, Jawad. Maybe Caroline, if you would like to start.
Okay. Worries. Is it working? No. Yes. Okay. So in terms of innovative production, I think I would like to start in the very beginning of the resource. So how I usually work, and I think where the potential and the innovation lies is actually to see what kind of resource you're working with. So most of the time, since like several years, I'm working valorizing local sheep wool, but in different regions. So I look into like what is the fiber for example, with local wool, it's very important to start from the beginning and see what kind of qualities does this wool have. Is it like coarse? Is it long? Is it which kind of micron does it has? To really analyze, okay, what quality of wool do I actually have? If we now think about wool, but it's applied also to other fibers. And then go from there. What can I do with this fiber? How can I valorize it? So from this, I go similar to this Alpine project and see, okay, what production possibilities I have in the area to make a local production line. And also how can I use this qualities of the fiber into this local production value chain, also creating a network of local production communities, finding out which kind of leaks or who's missing in this production line to valorize the fibers. And then in the end, it's very important also what we heard in the beginning of the project introduction is to then estimate, okay, what is there needed in the market, what actually people would buy. And I think an important aspect is maybe I can get a few examples. It would be, for example, in Austria, there was a sheep wool that was a bit coarse. So it was too itchy to put on the skin itself and to work with fashion or even to create a thread, which is going to a lot of production steps through the spinning. But instead, I worked a lot with non-wovens where you go directly from fiber to fabric and developing, for example, mattresses, an outdoor sleeping collection, felt, non-wovens in general. So to really think about what kind of quality does the fiber have and what kind of suitable applications there in the end. And I think with that, you can play a lot with innovation to, for example, I work with like automatizing needle felting to a semi-industrial level to take kind of craft to the next level. So I think there's a lot of different potentials in valorizing the fibers if you know the potential or the qualities of the fiber and the network that's locally available.
And maybe a perspective from the, let's say the step before using the materials from Jawad.
You mean from the agricultural production? Yeah, so as an agricultural advisor for my state farmers association, my role is not to bring up ideas, but to answer to requests from the farmers. And it also has to do, and so the focus has to do with logistics, that it's easy and convenient for them, and in a symbolic level that everything is used, and then that they are paid like a fair price. So for example, I could not focus on wool to focus on like specific breeds, because in the collection point, logistically, it's all collected and mixed, and something especially in Switzerland where of course we have like quite a lot of sheep because it's an alpine country, but the size of the herds are quite small. And so the collection areas often mix over 10 or 15 breeds, and the only sorting that we can do is between the colors. And so my job is really to work on what is convenient for them and what is their desire. For instance, for it to be ecological and socially inclusive, and then to match this with the clients and the industry. And what I find quite interesting is being an outsider from this textile ecosystem is that people were really focusing on the yarn, and they were seeing a lot of problems. When from an outside perspective, I was thinking, okay, there is part of the valorization that can happen on a small volume that can be then marketed at a higher price, and then there is a large volume that can be marketed at a lower price, and both of these acting together allows to, of course, use all of the volume that is being produced and then have like a good remuneration for everything. So it has to do with then sorting and targeting the right industries, as well as using each part of the product in an efficient way. And for the wool, I will say that, of course, high like breeds that make like good yarn, that make long fibers, etc. Of course, we're going to work on like small yarn production, but then the more coarser ones, we're going to work with like mattresses or insulation of both houses or clothing. And what we recently found out is like even the really short bits that were considered to be useless are of high interest to the concrete industry, because it can be used as a substitute from plastic bits to make composite material for construction.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, for this perspective, I think the major thing that you've highlighted is that there is a need to establish the connection across the value chain and to find the right outlets for the different kinds of materials and the different quality, because there is very important diversity in the case of wool, but it's also the case in other products from the agriculture industry. And this leads us, of course, to the topic of establishing the value chains, because there is this connection that needs to be established between the people producing the materials and the ones using the materials within the frame of a framework for social and economy that makes sense. But we also need to have the know-how and the capacity, especially in local value chains, to establish this. So maybe we could have a few words from Alix and Emma about this, about what would be, let's say, some key points in your minds in establishing local value chains, maybe from the perspective of wool, especially on which you are working and on which you have been working in a project.
So I think that it's also a little bit related to what Jawad was saying before, that it's really important to think about all the chain from the herd until the production, and for the Alpine project, we did a pilot where we selected 6 breed from the 6 countries that were part of the project, and for each breed we transform it from the raw fiber to different samples, and the idea was really to test the chain somehow and to see what is possible with each breed, because I think that the problem maybe for this fiber is that we always think that it's really scratchy and that it's hard to use it for other things, that isolation and but the thing is that the industry is not maybe designed for it yet, but we wanted to work on this project to show that actually there are different application for the material that are not just isolation but more specific one. So what we did, and that we can also show, we bought some samples, is that for each breed, we had the raw fiber, and then we spun it. We weaved, we knit, and we felted it, and we also did some padding. And for each breed, we choose a different application to show that we can actually find the right application for each for each breed. And I think that it's a part of a research that it's larger also for build a chain that is working not only for the industry but also to be able to pay the right amount to the breeders, and to have something that is more balanced and I would say so. But
Yeah, and maybe about the scale also, like you were saying, that some on smaller scale, for example, it's very interesting to think, okay, we have this breed with a nice wool and maybe it's good for spinning, so we should like separate from other wools. And then how do you translate this like small scale local way of approaching wool to a larger industry? And then what is the best usage for shorter fiber, like non-woven material, or for insulation? And then I think one of the big challenges to make this link between the local small scale and the industry. And how do you link, like we all know more this like craft and heritage, and maybe the link to the local production to this craft is easier than making the industry understand, okay, we can actually use these fibers. And for then also our role as designer, how can we help make them understand how to use it in the best way?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's I think interesting to have this comment, as we tend to oppose craft and industry because it is not the same scale, although the processes are rather similar, not the same scale, not the same machine, not necessarily the same know-how, and indeed establishing the connection between these two, let's say, different types of users for materials could be a possibility to work on a better territorial coherence also, and value chains as well. In terms of adopting different, maybe we see on the screen some. Sorry. We see on the screen some pictures from the wool library that you worked on. Would you like to make a couple of comments about it before we jump to the next topic?
yes, I think that's or you can just also pass through the public, but it's just some example, it's not everything. But you can see so two different breeds, the Bergamasca and the Montafoner from Austria. And so we choose these two. I think the Bergamasca is a really good example to see that it's very rough fiber, but we did some weaving tests that are more applied for a
rugs utilization and also padding. And I mean, for us, it's just a start. It's not at all finished, but it was a way to show different application. And these are two examples of two breeds. The Montafoner, it's just some samples, but it's to give you a overview. But then in Milano Unica, we presented everything, and it was more complete. Also, like Caroline, you were saying before that we also did this like testing, scientific test of all the fiber to understand, okay, what's the micron, how long it is, and then it helped us also to understand what's the best usage. And so we have like some common tests, for example, the plain weave, which is the most basic weave that we replicate on all the breeds, so we can really compare and people can touch. But then, for example, for Bergamasca, we thought, okay, we will not knit it because we think knitting is more appropriate now for clothing, even though you can also use it for other things. And so we think it's like a better usage, for example, for padding for jackets or for carpets. So we will focus more on this. And it's like giving the material to compare between the breeds, but also to use the best of each fiber.
Yeah, thank you very much. And so for those who would like to see the wool library fully and who didn't have the possibility to do so in Milano Unica, there will be other opportunities as it will be exhibited in Slovenia, I believe, end of August, then in Marseille in the beginning of October, and then in Lyon on October 21st. So there will be plenty of opportunity for you to have another look at it. So we discussed about the establishment of value chains, but for companies, it's also important to be able to make the right decision and to enter a decision process in order to implement these different changes. And to deal with this topic, I would like to address our remote speaker, Victoire, as the director of a media that is focusing on circularity in textiles. You have written about and followed stories of a variety of different companies, and I imagine that they all have different reasons to propose the innovations that they have, or to adopt new kinds of business models. So I don't see you anymore, but I've seen you 1 minute ago, so I think you're still there. Would you like to react on this about the let's say the capacity and the how the companies can engage and why in that direction of circularity and heritage sensitivity?
Of course, thank you very much for having me, and sorry not to be physically part of it. Yeah, I would like to react on many things. Probably two things I noticed more were about, of course, the emergency regarding climate change, and also the will to offer consumer more sustainable products and to have them understand where they come from, how they're made, etc. What are the heritage, which is mandatory, of course. There is, though, something I could stress with my experience that is, to me, a great advantage of yours that you should play with, which is the economic resilience and the strengths of a local model of short circuits, and the possibility to have a better risk management, to have a better cost management on your local supply chain, because every players on them. And this is a sad reality to mention, but today most of the brands are facing trouble with their supply chains, either because of the exploitation and the scandals, but also because of the consequences of the climate change that are already there in Asia, in particular in Myanmar, in Bangladesh. Most of the factories, the countries that own the factories of the fashion. And this is a great problematic and a business issue for huge players, which are probably not at first your main B2B consumers, but should be considered by you because they will definitely need to shorten their supplies. They will have to look at other materials than polyester, than cotton, which are already suffering either from the heat or from the costs of the transportation, the geopolitical context internationally. And so to me, the linen supply chain, the hemp supply chain, but also the wool, of course, are great resources because they're local, they're sustainable, they're available, and possibly in great amounts, and they are also very renewable and recyclable, as you said. So meant to be circular. Wool is a great example of that. And to me, the big challenge for you would be, of course, to have consumers on your side, to be able to sell the product in the end, but also to try your best not to stay at a local scale, which is what you do with this European project, but also not to look at it too much, or at least to show it too much with a craftsman perspective. Even though this is craftsmanship, this is heritage, and this is know-how that we need to preserve. If you want to, this is my personal opinion, and you may disagree about that. I think that today, if this supply chains, I would say les filières en français, but you talked about linen and wool, and we have the same thing, of course, in France. You need to go a little bigger and to be able to produce either small quantities or greater ones to face the demand, the incoming demand of conventional brands that need to themselves do their transition and will need you definitely in the future. So that would be my first remark. I don't know if it makes sense and if you want to react on this, and then I have a second point I can develop.
Anyone wants to react among the speakers? Yes, Jawad.
I think what's an interesting point from the agricultural perspective is this idea that we actually need more diversity in crops, and we need to diversify the incomes from farmers in rural areas. And a great way to do so is to set up local value chains that are maybe or potentially partially owned by the producers themselves, at least for the first transformation steps, which allows them first to have a better bargaining and negotiating power because they can offer a larger volume as a group. And then really from an agricultural perspective, we need hemp within the agricultural rotation. You cannot do every year the same crop, and having 6 or 7 is good, but the best is to have 10 or 15 and to have a mosaic in the landscape. And this is going to be positive from natural resource perspective, from chemical reduction, for fertilizer reduction, on many, many levels. And hemp and linen are great because they are, and wool is the same thing. I was saying there are multiple parts of wool, but a sheep produces meat, and the male can produce the female can produce milk, the male can produce meat, and the wool is another product. And then they're also fertilized. They can, the manure can be used as a fertilizer. And hemp can be used for the seeds, can be used for the flowers. You can use the fiber. A lot of the parts can be used, and it's the same. You can have both the seeds and the fiber. This is extremely, I think, positive, and I'm quite enthusiastic about this. Is there are a lot of potential for synergies, and it will be the way to go forward because it makes sense and it's consistent. From all aspects.
Yes, Clemente, you also would like to react?
Se posso, concordo esattamente sul discorso della canapa, ma anche il lino ha dei vantaggi al pari della canapa. Il terreno gli ridà fertilità, cioè lo rigenera durante la sua coltivazione. E indipendentemente da quello c'è anche poi il discorso del post vita, sia della canapa che del lino, che comunque non inquinano, si decompongono anche in termini di tessuti. Se io prendo un tessuto e lo vado a seppellire, nel breve periodo si decompone, quindi si autodistrugge, cosa che con prodotti sintetici tipo oggetti, si parla tanto di riciclo del PET, cose di questo genere, ma prima o poi il PET l'avremo comunque sempre presente, mentre nel caso del prodotto che nasce dalla terra, tipo il lino e la canapa, a fine vita ritornano nella terra. E secondo me una delle cose sulle quali io sto battendomi molto a livello di legislazioni, poi chiaramente nascono altri problemi, altri interessi, bisogna valorizzare nel momento in cui si parla di sostenibilità ambientale anche il post vita, ma il post vita che cosa succede nel momento in cui lo scarto? Perché il riciclo del PET che oggi stanno portando avanti e ne fanno quasi un esempio di prodotto realmente sostenibile, il costo del post vita non esiste. Nel caso del lino e della canapa, se si andasse a fare una valutazione di questi costi post vita, guadagnerebbero moltissimo, e non ci si fermerebbe solo al discorso resistenza martindale, quindi durata, ciclo, perché comunque questi prodotti hanno delle resistenze che ormai nel corso degli anni, essendo comunque da sempre presenti nel mercato, hanno sempre dimostrato la loro validità.
And maybe something that Victoire she said before about the craft and the industry, that also we can remember that craft is not only about heritage, it's also a big terrain for experimentation. And it's also way easier, for example, to experiment with a hand loom than an industrial loom. And that it's also just a terrain for future experimentation, and then industry can get inspired by this craft, and it's not something that we should see as old, or it's craft is just handmade, and it's not only about heritage.
Yeah, and I think in craft it's also a terrain where we see sometimes more innovation maybe than the industry, because it's easier to test. So it's there are more freedom, yes, for the craftsman, for of craft woman to test. So it's I think it's important also to say, yeah. But it's also it's also very nice to hear, and I totally agree with what Victoire, sorry, you were saying about the industry, because I think that also if we talk about wool, but also with flax and linen, if we want to really see a future that valorize this chain, it's important to think about the industry and not only craft, because if we want to have an impact of the the quantity of the material that we use, industry, and we don't have to talk about huge industries, but also local industries, an important step for the material to be used in a way that go beyond the craft step. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I don't know, Caroline, if you also have a comment. Everyone seems to have one. You don't have to if you don't want to.
Perspective, I was more thinking about that for me there is clear, like for me it's very clear there is something between industry and craft. Like I was working a lot in these different like semi-industrial environments, since sometimes as was mentioned, there is like certain amounts of wool that when you just go in the craft sector and do a hand felt, for example, or something hand knitted, it's very nice to produce and show the potential, and then maybe, as Emma said, inspire the industry. But then it's a lot about like how to do this communication and storytelling to the industry, to the like to make awareness when you have a very small part. So I think that's important if you start in the craft fund, to make this connection with the industry, how to communicate what we are doing, that it's actually scalable. And then I think also the question, does it make sense to scale this product in like a bigger scale, because this will like influence the whole value chain. Because for example, I was working a lot on like washing wool, and there are very different scales of washing wool.
So, for example, we have the bigger industries of washing wool that then supply the big companies. You have like semi-industrial ones, which most of the time, for example, I was working with a kind of big company in Austria, and the problem was if we would wash all the wool the company in Austria would need for their production, all the local small crafts people that actually wash in this washing facility would be kicked out. So all the small ones would lose their way of valorizing their, let's say, small quantity of wool. But the big company would like overtake it, and then they have certain like qualities they want. So there's a lot of like this in between. What is the scale, and is there a semi-industrial way to stay with the example of the washing? For example, for this company, the best solution was to develop their own washing. So they had one guy with a big washing machine, for example, valorizing alpaca wool, which worked super well. They had their own washing facility that they established newly, and was kind of semi-industrial because it didn't need a whole big factory building, but it was valorizing exactly that type of alpaca wool. They could do the quality they want. So I think that's kind of an example of saying like, okay, between the craft and this kind of big scale production, there's something like semi-industrial that is also interesting depending how you want to valorize fibers or on which quantity of fibers you're looking at, I think.
Yeah, thank you very much. This really highlights the complementarity between the different, say, discipline sectors, but also the fact that there is a need for, let's say, sort of a systemic approach for establishing this kind of circular value chain, which will probably resonate with the third roundtable of the day dedicated to policymakers, because they, of course, play an essential role in that. And Victoire, I believe you had the second point that you wanted to discuss. Please.
Yeah, thank you very much for your comment. I agree definitely with the last one, and I'm sure that it's a mixed strategy to have, including innovation towards also circularity in order not to extract and produce in a linear way always more. It has to be a good mix. My second thought was so regarding the target you address your messages to, because I find that the digital tools that you developed are really wonderful, and it takes the craftsmanship to another level, which is not, as was described as odd previously, or maybe a little dusty when you can think of wool in a traditional way. But it takes it to the next level in order to show also younger generation that are more digitally equipped what this can be. To me, though, the message to address to the customers is maybe not only regarding sustainability, because with the media we run various I don't have the word in English, sorry, des sondages, like digging into people's mind and asking questions to our community of our audience to know what they would like to know about brands in general. And it appears that most of them are not this much into sustainability, but more into quality. And the investment, like the price quality ratio. And this is also one of your strengths and one of the strengths of your product. And also one thing that is super important, specifically in France right now, where we can see all of these French brands closing one after another, especially because of the competition of ultra fast fashion and Shein, which we're trying to regulate on the other side very in a very firm way. But so people are very concerned about the local economy, the closing of the local shops, the employees that are losing their jobs. And for me, this is also a very good thing to communicate on. What you create as a local network, not only for in a business perspective, but also in a social and with a local life perspective, because it creates values in many ways. This could be regarding the know-hows, of course, but it also it creates economic values that can be put ahead in your communication for customers. And also regarding the communication in general, what we discovered through this survey, this was the word I was looking for, through the surveys, is the fact that actually for brands today, customers are not the main target of the communication regarding their commitments. But it's interesting to see that employees come first, and the brand, what we call a marque employeur, the image of the brand from an employee perspective is super important. So it's more for in a corporate perspective. And also the bank and investors are really concerned about your commitment towards sustainability and more willing to invest into companies that could be considered as sustainable in an economic way as well, because you also have this power to organize the ecological resilience through a territorial resistance. You know, you decide to decentralize the power to take back the production of fashion from the hand of elsewhere in the world, and to cultivate that network and that strength locally. So to me, this is also something that has a great value. So first of all, congratulations and for this. And second of all, I think that yes, you can wider your communication perspective on this these actors. And obviously regarding regulation, Robin, you mentioned it in the introduction, but either in France or Europe, l'affichage environnemental, so digital product passports, the traceability regarding CSRD, sorry. It's also like checkpoints that you already marked, like naturally with what you're doing. So don't hesitate to use that also to communicate in a more corporate way.
Thank you very much, Victoire. We are reaching the end of the session. I don't know if we have time for one or two questions, or maybe not. One question. Okay. Do we have one question from the audience, or an additional remark for the speakers? No question? Okay, great.
Io,
Yes.
Se posso un attimino, cioè, secondo me bisogna anche valutare le fasce di mercato. Cioè, qua parliamo artigiano, industria, brand. Il brand è un'industria di livello altissimo, ma di livello altissimo per immagine, non è detto che lo sia di qualità. L'artigiano fa la qualità, ma fa la qualità in rapporto a quello che sono le sue capacità e i suoi spazi. Poi c'è un tipo di industria che sinceramente è quella più tradizionale, quella che è riuscita nel corso degli anni ad adeguarsi alle reali richieste di mercato e ai cambi, diciamo, politici o di politiche a livello territoriale, a livello internazionale o europeo e a livello internazionale o mondiale. Questo per dire che ci sono alcuni prodotti, come possono essere la realtà che vivo io, che è un'azienda che in un certo periodo della sua vita, quindi dall'800 al 900, ha risposto a determinate esigenze, è cresciuta, è arrivata a un numero di dipendenti notevoli e oggi si è posizionata a fare il prodotto di fascia alta nel mondo del lino, sia a livello, ed è pronta a rispondere sia a livello tecnologico, quindi quando serve un prodotto a uso tecnico, sia facendo ricerca chiaramente, sia toccando magari anche il discorso della moda, arrivando a servire dei brand per la fascia più alta, perché a me capita di vendere tessuti per fare borsette 20x20 che vendono a 3.500-4.000 euro. Per cui bisogna stare un attimo attenti, cioè voi parlate di artigiani, gli artigiani usano magari dei materiali con dei numeri di materie prime di quantità ridotta, quindi più di certi numeri, più di certe quantità non possono essere realizzate. La fascia di mercato alta dell'industria ha bisogno delle quantità, ma c'è anche comunque un'industria che dà una qualità e un prodotto che collabora notevolmente con l'artigiano, lo aiuta a crescere indirettamente, senza andare a toccare gli interessi dell'industria più grossa. Quello che secondo me a livello politico oggi nel discorso dell'inquinamento che abbiamo indirettamente toccato e della sostenibilità ambientale, quello che è importante far capire è che ci sono comunque dei prodotti che hanno un fine vita che esiste. E che cosa succede di questi prodotti con il fine vita? Da lì poi nascono il discorso di dire la qualità della lana, la qualità del lino, la qualità della canapa. Per cui bisogna stare molto attenti e secondo me la politica più importante che va fatta oggi è l'arrivare a valorizzare questi prodotti, queste materie prime che hanno un inizio vita e un fine vita senza inquinare. Cosa che tutto ciò che arriva dalla chimica difficilmente ha un dopovita, ma è qualcosa che resterà sempre sul mercato, cioè sul mercato nel senso sul territorio, con tutte le conseguenze passate. Quindi dobbiamo sì lavorare in questa direzione, ma dobbiamo stare attenti a non andare troppo a toccare quegli interessi, cioè la località, l'originalità, il territorio è la base su cui bisogna lavorare.
I think there's a lot to say, but it will be too much time.
If you have one sentence of conclusion, you can share it if you wish.
Wow. I think I just wanted to make a comment on the discussion before about the consumer, because I think one quick thing I wanted to say is that for sure there should be a communication to the consumer, because I think now we are in this bubble of awareness of ecological textiles, etc., and we are all very aware, but I think there are a lot of people that are not aware, out of my experience working with companies, because they say, actually, we have a 100% wool textile that is brown, but it's not brown wool, it's white wool that it's then very eagerly washed and then dyed brown to certify that it's exactly that tone of brown. And I was thinking it's kind of madness to dye it brown and then not use the brown wool that we have, even if they're like softer wools in brown. So I think there is also a kind of work of awareness of like, what are we consuming and are we actually understanding what we're consuming? And I think there's a whole work of like working with the consumer and making awareness. And then the second part is I saw a lot of projects where they had the beautiful work of a value chain that was working, that was local, that valorized the fibers, but in the end there was a lack of design, that people are actually buying it. So I think there are the two aspects of like communicating what you are selling, but then also selling a product that there's still an investigation in design and what consumers actually would buy. And instead of like having a product in the end that is a great value chain, but nobody's buying it. So still the farmer doesn't get paid, the value chain doesn't get paid. So to make these two connections.
Thank you very much. Well, this leads us to the end of the session. So thank you very much, Caroline, Emma, Alix, Clemente, and Jawad for joining us in Milan. And thank you very much, Victoire, for making yourself available. You've had the best reason not to be there because you're on holiday. So thank you very much for taking some time to spend the morning with us.
Thank you very much for having me. Have a good session. Thank you.